Hello everybody and welcome back to Frank's Collecting Castle. My name is Daniel and today I want to talk about a particular movement that took place for about 10-ish years in the early 2000s, and I'm talking about New French Extremity, which, just to give a bit of a background, New French Extremity are, as you can see some of the movies here, are very angry, very violent, very visceral movies. And so it started in the early 2000s, and as I said, it lasted about 10-ish years. So in the 90s, we had what I like to call the Dawson's Creek, Felicity era of horror movies. Very soft, very mainstream, plain horror movies with famous TV actors, famous teen actors. You had Scream and Final Destination and I Know What You Did Last Summer and Faculty and those types of mainstream soft movies. That was in the 90s. In the 80s, we've had the slasher boom and all the slasher movies, and this sort of petered out and became this 90s white nothing. Urban Legends, another one of these movies. That was like, they were friendly, they were almost family friendly, and you could sit and laugh a little bit because they were funny. Then you had torture porn with Hostel and Saw and those types of movies. Cabin Fever by Eli Roth and the Blood Splat Pack. But you also had a movement in France called New French Extremity, with more angry movies. And these movies were like a response to that blandness of the 90s. They were also a response to the civil unrest and the political unrest in France in this time, or during this time. Like in 2005, there were huge riots in Paris, specifically in Paris, that eventually spread out to other cities in France, like Marseille and Nice. And it had to do with class and power and money and ethnicity, where during these these riots, this civil unrests, the French Prime Minister at the time, Sarkozy, made some very, very unfortunate comments about ethnicity, about unemployment, about the unemployed youths. That didn't help. It just sort of put more gasoline on the fire. And he called in national security and called, like, these riots were very violent. Unfortunately, not a lot of people died. I think there was like 3 deaths, but there was like 200 police cars set on fire. Several other cars, of course, police buildings. There was a lot of rioting towards the government and towards the police and military. And these movies, the New French Extremity movies, felt like the response to the 90s bland horror movies and to the civil unrest in France. So you had these movies like Frontiers, Irreversible, Martyrs, High Tension or Switchblade Romance, Trouble Every Day, Raw, by directors like Pascal Lochier and Gaspar Noé, Alexandre Aja and Julia Ducournau. So, and after the 90s movies that were pleasant and you could watch with your family and have a laugh and all of that, these movies came along, like Frontiers and Base Moi and Calvaire and Switchblade Romance or High Tension, that were an absolute response. These were not funny movies. These movies challenged you as a viewer of how much can you take, how much visceral violence. It was sexual violence, it was rapes, and you saw the violence very specifically. You saw everything. The camera didn't turn away. How much could you handle? And a movie like Frontiers was about this group of youngsters actually fleeing from the riots in Paris specifically, and they get into trouble, and it's very, very violent. And yes, these are tough movies to watch. Based more as a movie that I haven't finished, even because I just couldn't finish it, because it's basically porn, and not in a good way, but it's not. Yeah, it's just a tough movie. A movie like Frontiers has very hard violence, but I enjoy it. Switchblade Romance, or High Tension, was the movie that sort of kicked off the new French Extremity. I like it. It's a home invasion movie, but very violent. The thing about these movies, they don't always make the most sense. They're not always logical, but they're very interesting movies. Another movie that is very interesting but incredibly hard watch is Gaspar Noé's Irreversible. And the movie goes in reverse. It starts with the credits, and it goes completely reverse the entire movie. And not enough with that, he turns the camera like this and switches and turns, makes it curves and makes it go around to make you as a viewer actually feel physically ill, physically sick. And he also put a frequency in the soundtrack to make you feel even more dizzy and physically sick. Plus the violence is horrible. And then there's the most infamous 9-minute rape. The most visual thing you've ever seen. It's absolutely horrendous, and it shouldn't be watched. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen, ever sat through. My God, it's absolutely horrible. But the filmmaking itself, if you can actually look away from the story, look away from the way he shoots this movie, is very interesting, because it's such a different way to shoot a movie that I've never seen before. And Gaspar Noé and like the director of this movie, let's see, I can't. Oh, Jesus! But these movies were made by provocateurs. They provoke you. They challenge you. It's not your regular horror movie. Where you sit in the cinema, you watch a movie, and you go home. These movies challenge you. How much can you take? How much can you stomach? Like Frontiers, like Switchblade Romance, like Irreversible, or like Martyrs. They stay with you. How much they leave a mark on you. And that's the point with New French Extremity. It's not for everybody, but these are important movies. And I just want to showcase New French Extremity for its importance and for its legacy that it has left on horror and horror movies, and maybe movies in general. I don't know how to explain it. I enjoy these movies to a certain point. They're not, as I said, it's not movies you just put on for, it's not like when you put on a Halloween or Friday the 13th movie to sort of slow watch and laugh a little bit when Jason goes killing the teenagers. These are not for fun. They are not fun, but they're really good. I think they're great movies. High Tension or Switchblade Romance. It's a home invasion movie. Very violent, but it's damn good. And Second Sight just released a box set on 4K and Blu-ray with this movie. And they also have released a box set of New Frontiers in 4K and Blu-ray. So highly recommend these two movies. This one, Calvaire, or The Ordeal as it's known, it's a bit weird. Fortunately, I guess it's not as extreme, not as horrible violence, but neither one of these movies, like, they don't all make sense, but they have a point to them. As I said, they're very angry. Their response to the 90s and their response to the civil unrest and the political unrest in France in the 90s. And so I hope you learned a little bit more about New French Extremity, and I actually hope that you do check it out. But it's a trigger warning at the same time, because if you can't take sexual violence or violent violence, angry movies, these are not for you. Movies like Martyrs and Irreversible, those two movies in particular, are really, really hard movies to watch, and maybe you should watch them once to sort of experience them, and that's it. Hope you enjoyed this movie. If you do, give me a thumb up. Please subscribe if you want more content, and comment down below. What do you think about New French Extremity, or what you don't like about New French Extremity? Have you seen any of these movies or any of the other New French Extremity movies? And what do you think? Please comment down below, and see you all in the next video, guys.